we are standing, witnessing something, and we have to speak up against it. I'm going to tell you, we have this actually, it's a very Islamic concept. And we're taught that if you see an injustice, you have to try to change it with your hands. If you can't change it with your hands, then you have to try to change it with your tongue. And if you can't change it with your tongue, the weakest form of faith is at least to hate it with your heart. And so I tell people all the time, I could at least be in the middle, and I could at least speak up against that injustice using my tongue. And so I hope people realize that every time you are saying, this is unjust, this is wrong, that you are literally protecting the very little of humanity that's left. And I'm telling you, we gotta give something to the next generations that come. And if none of us are saying anything right now, people are gonna look back and be like, where were the people? Who were the people speaking up when the children of Gaza were getting massacred, when the women and men of Gaza were getting massacred? Gaza.
I worked very hard.
We're gonna be like, at least we were saying what needed to be said. And so I say that is, of course, we feel like it's a bare minimum.
So infinitesimal.
I know, but it's so important because we're shifting. We have never seen people speak of Palestine in the way that they are right now.
This is facts.
And now, mind you, that our governments are not listening to us, but at least the narrative is on the side of the Palestinian people. And it's very clear to me in every nation in this world.
I mean, the idea, the Islamic concept that you speak of is so universal.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people even don't understand enough about Islam to really be a part of the conversation, even though they're inserting Islam into the conversation all the time. Like right now, I feel a lot of people being like, this is about Islam. I'm like, you don't know anything about Islam. You probably don't know anything about Judaism either.
Nope.
So I don't even know why you're even involving that, because regardless of religion, like this is just a very clear situation of a power overpowering the powerless. Like that's just
absolutely. And actually understanding Islam a little bit does help you understand the Palestinians of Gaza. Now, remember, there are Christians also who live in Gaza, so let's be clear about that. But the overwhelming majority of Palestinians in Gaza are Muslims. And so a lot of times people will say, I don't understand. Look at these mothers, like they just lost all their children and they're thanking God. How is that possible? Like, how do you thank God after you just lost your children?
What's the phrase?
It's to God we belong and to God we return.
Yes.
And that's what you hear oftentimes in Arabic being said by a lot of these, mothers and fathers and people who are losing their loved ones. And so when you hear this, to God we belong, to God we return. And also you hear things like Alhamdulillah, which means thank God. And people are like looking at me like, what do you mean you thanking God? And I said, because if these people didn't have faith,
how would we get through?
There's no way they were going to get through this. The beautiful concepts of mothers believing to get them through this, that their children are waiting for them at the gates of heaven, that they're going to open the doors of heaven for their parents. Like this is what is getting this mother through the agony of losing 4 or 5 of her children. That's part of faith. It's believing that there is a world beyond this one. So that's what I tell people, is that Gaza is a place where you could actually learn a little bit about Muslims and Islam. The way in which you see those orphan children, they just lost all their parents, their parents, their grandparents, and then all of a sudden some strange guy who may be a reporter, he may be a nurse, he may be a volunteer, is picking up the kid. I hear some women that are in the movement like, when can we adopt the children of Gaza? Like when the war is over. And I said, that's actually one place in the world where you can adopt their children. They will not let those children leave because they want those children to grow up close to their culture, close to their family ties, close to their bloodlines, close to the villages that they are from. And they will be, and their land. And they don't want these kids to lose that connection. So they're going to love them and they're going to take care of them. And they're going to say they're their children when they're in fact not their blood children, but they're going to treat them like they're the children. That's the Muslim, that's Islam for me. That has made me more proud to be a Muslim, watching the faithfulness, the patience, the resilience, the perseverance, and the getting up and putting your book bag on and going to the next camp.
How much of a role do you feel like your Islamic faith has played in you being a freedom fighter?
For me, it's a very essential part of my organizing, my getting up, my putting myself in risk. Because I always say to people, some people will say to me, like after they've seen some things I've experienced over the last 20 years or 22 years of organizing, they always say to me, you're not afraid. Like,
what's something you've experienced that made you afraid, or that they thought should have made you afraid?
So many things. Death threats, people sending mail to my house. These are things that have also been public. People who have tracked my children, took pictures of my kids, and sent the scrapbook to my mother. These are people who have sent me explicit death threats that have been investigated by law enforcement. This is like, I went to a university in Southern Florida where a guy literally had a whole conversation on Facebook basically asking what color car I was going to show up in, what entries was I going to use. And when the law enforcement went to basically follow up, this is a man in Florida with ammunition in his car. Like if he was in court, I don't know. I mean, the cop said, we don't think he's a threat, but you clearly were asking all these very specific questions about my whereabouts. And then you also have ammunition in your car. Come on, friends, like there's a little something there. And for being a Muslim, it's all about compassion. Like I don't like to see people hurt. I don't like to see people suffer. And what I'm taught is that if I'm given blessings, I got to use every talent, every blessing that God gave me to alleviate harm and suffering. And that's what I do every day. And at least I think to myself, what can I do today to alleviate some of that harm and some of that suffering? And sometimes it doesn't feel like I'm doing something major and transformative, but even if I'm doing something on a personal level, some form of kindness, something that is even beyond the organizing, just being a good person, that is a struggle for people, just to be a good, decent person every day.
That is a struggle.
Amanda, we come from cultures, whether it's Black culture or different types of immigrant culture, where we're taught about this idea of a village. We think about people who are around us. We're helping grandma and auntie needs, or my cousin down south needs, or my cousin in the village in Palestine needs. This country taught us individualism. So for me, like I reject individualism. And that's why I have this weird relationship with this country, where my parents came here because they wanted their children not to be born under a military occupation. So I don't take that for granted.
Right.
And I don't take for granted that I am in a country that I'm going to say what I want and speak up and organize and do. I don't take that for granted at all. But that doesn't mean, because I'm not going to take it for granted, that I'm just going to say, okay, so I'm riding smooth and I'm not going to worry about anybody else that's around me. And so that's the place where a lot of people have critiqued me by saying, if you don't like it here, go back to where you came from. Well, first of all, I came from Brooklyn, just so we're clear. But if you mean go back to Palestine, which is where my family's from, then you and me got to work together, my friend, so we could free Palestine. And I would gladly pack my bags and go back to a free Palestine. But right now I can't do that. So maybe that's the place that we're going to find some common ground.
But also, like, what the hell is this concept of, like, if you don't like it, leave? Like, that's what I said to my ex, but, like, that's because he wasn't contributing anything to this house. I mean, I'm paying taxes in this, Bia.
A whole lot.
If I don't like it, I can demand it needs to change.
And the funniest part is when they say things like this to me. They say, well, why don't you go back to Saudi Arabia? First of all, I'm not from Saudi Arabia. Just so we're clear. So even in that, there's ignorance. Like, first of all, figure out where I'm really from, and then tell me to go back over there. I mean, for me, I'm just like in this place where...
Which, by the way, is just a representation of how dumb everything is also.
It's so dumb.
Like, people can't even diss you properly.
Never.
Like, people try and give me disses where they misspelled my name and there's bad grammar.
Yeah, I'm just like,
work on something for yourself.
Yeah, I posted some of them emails on the internet, and people, it's so funny, the grammar police comes out. Like, at least if you're going to hate the lady, just
your.
Spell check.
Your and your.
Spell check.
Yes.
A little spell check, my friends.
Show me the respect that if you want to kill me, you're at least not going to kill me with bad grammar first.
That part. But I'm one of those people, I don't even engage those people on the internet. And the other thing that I believe is only God could cancel me. So you could cancel me all day,
Did you put it
all
on a
night.
shirt?
Only God can cancel me. And guess what God?
That's a shirt, baby.
And guess what God is not gonna do?
Cancel you.
Me. So that's what I say to people all the time. So y'all go knock yourself out, because I'm still here. Because God has not canceled me, and He's not gonna cancel me or cancel Amanda Seals.
Well, what we did post on the internet was a video asking for your questions, and so we're gonna answer them over at the Amandaverse. So shout out to all of our Patreon subscribers, the SEAL Squad. We're going to come to you right now.
And all the other freedom fighters that Palestinian and other indigenous people and Black folks and others, that just gives me enough satisfaction. So I yearn to see it. I want to see it. But is it going to be 2024? I might get surprised. But I won't be mad if it's not 2024, because I know it's inevitable. We will be free. All of us are going to be free. It's just inevitable.
There you go, SEAL Squad.